Welcome back, Beyonders, to Tabletop and Beyond. This is Winning Warcry. We are happy to have you here today. Jason, welcome back to the show. It's been a little while.
Yeah, it's been a while. It's good to be here.
Yeah, we're so happy to have you here. It looked like your schedule opened up for tonight. Yeah, exactly. Yep. We definitely did. And Dan, welcome to the show. You have brought a special guest yourself.
Yep, this is Felix. He didn't want to go to bed, so here we are.
Oh, the delights of not having your toddlers go to bed when they need to.
Yeah.
Good times. But we're happy to have Felix here. I'm sure we'll get some meaningful insight, from him later. So, but we got a really interesting show today. We were supposed to record the day before yesterday, and it's kind of we kind of were ships in the night. We missed each other, and so we decided to do it today. And sure enough, our luck held out this time. It's kind of the running joke with us, Dan, right? That like we record and then like a few days later, like Warcry always drops like big bombshells on us.
Yeah.
So we're lucky that we waited one day because we have a new fact that came out. So we're going to talk about the fact. We're going to talk about the Idrillian Riverblades, the Lumineth warband that came out. I break that down a little bit, and then we're going to talk about the ITC and what that means for Warcry. Like if we should do a Warcry one, if we can do a Warcry one. So we're going to work through that a little bit. So we are excited to get to this, but let's just start real quick. Hobby table. Jason, are you working on anything right now?
Me?
Yes.
Let's see. I have been clearing my table because I have this inkling that I really want to get back. I want to get Skaven on the table, and the AOS Spearhead Skaven is going to be one of those, the two in the box, in the main box there. So it's an opportunity for me. Years ago when I was doing Warhammer, tried to get into Warhammer Fantasy, I bought a Skaven box at Battle Force or whatever they were called back then. Never got it fully on the table. Got it fully built, never got it on the table, and then life happened. And then by the time I came back, Fantasy was kind of not the mainstream anymore. And then AOS popped in, and I just never got back to Skaven. So I'm going to use this as an opportunity. So I've been clearing my hobby table so that when that box finally shows up, I'll be able to hit the table and get that thing built. So
that's good. I think Skaven's going to be pretty good. I mean, if they're in the box, like I think they're going to be,
pretty
legit.
Nighthaunt was in a box once.
That's true. They were good. They had their day in the sun for about a month. Yeah. Exactly. They had their day in the sun for about a month. Nice. Dan, what about you? What are you working on?
Painting some terrain. My buddy JJ, we got some STLs together, and then he printed off a whole bunch of 3D printer terrain. So been working on that a little bit. Otherwise, I painted a Selesky, the Slanesh demon prince who's wearing a demon net as a backpack.
Okay.
Really like that model. Yeah. The whole thing, he's on a Myrmidon base.
Mm-hmm.
So he was going to be my Slanesh Myrmidon. I was pretty excited about that. Less excited now since we got our Meta Watch, but that's okay. He's still cool. I mean, the point of him is to be cool, right? So I'll find a time to play him as a Myrmidon again. I got to play 3 games with him at a narrative tournament as a Myrmidon, so that was cool.
Nice.
Yeah. Went 2-1. My only loss was to classic KO with 2 Aether Cannons and a Bloodrack Medusa. I actually almost won, but did not win. And now I don't ever have to face that again. So very excited.
Yeah, exactly. We'll talk about KO and kind of what that means. Like some of the fact changes here. They're probably one of the most focused on factions in the FAQ this time, right? So, very cool. Very cool. Since we last met, I finished my Chaos Legionnaires, and I finished the Hunters of Huan Chi. So that's great. So now I've got that box pretty much done that had the Hunters of Wanchi and the Jade Obelisk. And I'm almost done with the Warcry box of the Stormcast Vanguard. Remember that? That's like an older box. It's like a 1.0 box that kind of came out. So I had those built and primed for the longest time on my shelf, and I said, "Okay, you guys are next, right?" And I'm just kind of pulling down as I reach up and grab warbands to finish. And I'm still I hit a little bit of a lull. I got sick here a couple weeks ago, like really bad sinus infection, and it kind of killed my hobby time. Just because I couldn't find the drive to like come down and do it as I was not feeling good. But the good thing is that because I had been crushing earlier, I'm still well on track for my one warband a month goal for the year.
Nice.
To try to paint.
Wow, that's going to be a lot of painting. Nice.
Yeah, I'm at 6 right now that I've already done.
Wow.
Right, so like I'm about a month ahead of schedule.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty happy with that, and I've got a bunch of like little warbands that I'm just trying to knock out, like the Cypher Lords and the like the Unmade and like all of these 1.0 ones that might be going away. I think we're going to talk about that a little bit, but today.
Yeah. Mixed messages now.
Mixed messages for sure, right? And but that I just, if I don't get them painted now, then if they do get nerfed and put into Legends, they probably will never get painted, right? So I can't live with that. I can't live with it. So I've just been working on those. So yeah, I'm excited to get this stuff to the table, and just keep playing with it, right? So awesome. Well, to all you out there, show us what you got for your hobby table. Drop it in our Discord that we have. Links in the bottom if you're not a member of the Discord. But I love seeing the community's models. We have some really, really amazing painters in our group. Great White Nope is like ridiculous painting. He entered that his diorama at Adepticon and did pretty well. Kaylor, who's in there, he's got some great painting stuff that he puts in there. So even if you think you guys are mediocre, and even if you're taking pictures with the potato camera, like I still want to see them. I want to see what everybody's working on, because it's great. It gives me motivation too, right? So awesome. All right, well, let's get to the meat of our news, and let's talk about the April 2024 FAQ. Right, frequently asked questions. Let me ask real quick. Did you think that we were going to get a FAQ today?
No, and the accompanying MetaWatch video, yes. I didn't think we would ever get a MetaWatch video ever.
I know. Mm-hmm. I agree.
And so not only did I mean, we were overdue for a FAQ. I had been whining for about like 2 months about our lack of an FAQ, but I didn't expect it. I mean, that's the rule, right? It never happens when you expect it. So
I was with all the AOS stuff that was going on, with all the AOS stuff that is happening, right? With the AOS 4. I actually told Rob the other day, I said, we won't see an update until July, in my opinion, because we're going to need to, like, June is when AOS 4 is going to come out. We're going to, have that kind of settle for a little bit. They're going to go through all the different factions and their updates and all that stuff, and then we'll get some Warcry content in like early July. I still think that might be the case. We still may get some Warcry content. We might get some new warbands and things like that announced in July, but I'm glad. What's funny is this is called the April 2024 FAQ, but it's May 9th right now.
Yeah. Which means they wrote it ages ago and just couldn't get it on the WarCon schedule.
Yeah,
which
exactly.
is so funny.
Yeah. I bet you the video delayed it a little bit, in my opinion. Like making the video.
Oh, yeah. And do you think that I wonder if they made the video, I didn't come up with this. A couple people I've talked to have conspiracy theoried this, that the terrible sort of brouhaha around the squatting, and like when they removed a bunch of warbands from AOS, and people thought like, Uncle Adam with his 100,000 viewer army like made a video about how Warcry is going away, and I think they felt maybe some pressure to like do more than just an FAQ is what I
Yeah.
wonder.
I think that's fair. I think
Yeah.
that's very fair. I think, and to be fair, also Uncle Adam thinks like a lot of times like he's a little bit of Chicken Little. Like the sky's falling. He's like, is this a terrible thing? You know, like
Yeah.
is Warhammer 40K becoming too competitive? You know what I mean? Like that's just kind of his vibe that he's got. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So like saying
Sure.
Warcry is going away is like saying like Blood Bowl's going away. Like it's not going to ever go away. Now the question is like will we lose support? I think a lot of people thought that when they talked about the squatting of some of the original war bands, you know.
Yeah.
But if you really looked at how many war bands were out there, like if you literally counted, it was like if you counted the compendium ones, we're at something like 64, 68 war bands, something like that.
Yeah,
you
it's a
know,
lot
and
of
you're
fun.
like a little bit of pruning isn't terrible. You know, like cutting it down just a little bit because you can't provide balance, right? And we talked about that during our last show, but I think there's some mixed messaging about that, right? And maybe we'll talk about that right now because I do find it interesting that they updated the updated Corvus Cabal.
Mm-hmm.
And they updated the Cypher Lords in here. Like,
Yeah,
if they are going away, why would you update them? You know,
Sure.
and they updated them in like a good way. Like, you know, like the Corvus Cabal now doesn't need like the 3-inch swoop. You can get it off of 2 inches, which it kind of is the same thing at the end of the day because there's no.
I thought they
terrain up
updated
there.
it in a hilarious way where all those bespokes, because they updated a few different bespokes,
Mm-hmm.
and they didn't necessarily update them in a way of like, how do we fix their problems in competitive play?
Yeah.
They just like took the most charismatic model that is bad and they just buffed that one.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
Shrike Talon going down 40 points.
Yeah.
That's such a fuck it.
Right.
I thought was so funny. Like, I don't know if that's going to make Corvus Cabal really good, right? Because, I mean, is a triple Strike Talon list going to be the answer? Maybe, who knows? But it felt like a very just like, you know, let them eat cake kind of kind of approach.
So the interesting thing that I got from the Meta Watch video that he said specifically in there, he said we made some changes to some of the OG war bands, and he said that specifically OG war bands, so that maybe we could make them a little bit more competitive and fit like a Fulmaraid Crusher or a Myrmidon in the list a little bit easier, right? And I'm like, yeah, I guess that's true. Like, really, like a big problem with Corvus Cabal and Cypher Lords and stuff like that is that their chaff is too expensive for what you get. You know what I mean? Like, when you've got a, you know, toughness 3, 8 wound model, even if it does have 4-inch movement, it should not be like 30 points more than the toughness 3, 12 wounds that you get with KO. You know what I mean? You're like 30
they dealt
points.
With KO too. I mean, yeah, but absolutely, and I don't think those changes were necessarily aimed at competitive play so much as like making them not embarrassing in competitive play, which I think are, you know, two different things. Like solving the top end puzzle of the meta is pretty different than doing.
Yeah.
Solving the top end puzzle of the meta is like pretty different than just letting someone go 2 and 2 and have fun, which I think is where your energy is best spent for a lot of factions, right? I mean, there can only be 5 or 6 top things at the end of the day anyway.
So Jason had an interesting question before the show about where they get the stuff for the fact, right, Jason?
Where they get the stuff for the fact?
Well, where they get like the data, right? Like,
oh yeah, which kind of gets to what we'll talk about a little bit later. But yeah, like where, you know, you're watching that video, that Meta Watch video, and I'm thinking, where are they getting? He says the data from the tournaments. like how are they collecting data from tournaments for Warcry?
I send it to them every time I do a video, and I assume that it goes nowhere, but who knows?
I mean,
Yeah.
that'd be great if it did, but
Because I
I
don't
guess
get
my
a
point is there's no
response.
real
Yeah.
formal data collection for Warcry.
yeah,
Not from them. I mean, there is for
Yeah.
me. Like
right.
I spend hours every week, like canvassing TOs. Not hours every week, but like I spend real time like canvassing TOs and asking what went down. And I do send it to them, and they don't respond. But
Yeah. Do you think
maybe
that
they
they
just like legally cannot respond. I don't know.
right? Do you think that they just get their data from Warhammer World, or do you think that this fact speaks to a broader survey? I guess
People don't bring KO to Warhammer World.
that's what I was thinking too. They don't bring a
Yeah.
lot of like the really competitive meta that you see out there. Like you don't see a lot of that at Warhammer World. It's kind of a weird mix between competitive and narrative at Warhammer World.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like this like in between.
And the thing that was really crushing it at Warhammer World for a long time was just like anyone putting a FOMO like taking their favorite chaos faction and then just adding a FOMO crusher to it.
Right.
And those people were just beating the people who didn't have a FOMO crusher. And they did nerf the FOMO. They nerfed it, right? They nerfed it 10 points. So clearly Warhammer World meta does matter to them.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing that was winning a lot over there was Soulblight Gravelords.
Right. Yep.
And they probably gave the most comprehensive attention to Soulblight, right? Like
for the points for sure.
Because they were nerfing a whole bunch of different fighters, and they nerfed them by different amounts.
Uh-huh.
Right? That's when they're really doing something on purpose. Is when they're like, this is going to go up 10, and this is going to go up 5, and this is right. That means like someone really sat down. He's probably giving you a lot of noise right now, but
so that seems like that Warhammer Worlds probably has a significant contribution to their decisions. But then you say that KO doesn't really come to Warhammer Worlds, but it was also KO was a big portion of the video discussion.
Yeah.
So where I guess it's always a curious thing to wonder like what gaming pockets of geographic gaming culture are affecting the decisions that they're making in their facts, right?
Right. Because KO did win Adepticon.
Yeah.
Right. So that's a pretty big public tournament that
that's true.
That they could have sort of talked about a little bit. And then, there's sort of a question about like how much are they spying on the community? How much did they do they have people just kind of in like poking through Reddit threads and poking through
we should have
on the Discord.
We should have a Fight Club Warcry community.
Yeah.
Right.
like there's no external access to the data. Like it's invitation only. Like you'd only know about it because, you got the secret, like,
that's right.
Voting card at another tournament.
Yeah. I've suspected for a while that they might be lurking in like the big cry Discord and some of the other ones, just kind of like listening. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just kind of seeing what like the vibe of the game is out there.
Well, you'd hope that they would be like that. They should have someone in there.
One of the things that really came across to me from the video is that like I really appreciated John's love for the game. Like I really do think that he really likes Warcry and he's really trying to put his best effort into it, and that did come across really strongly for me. And man, John, if you ever want to come on the show, I know Games Workshop probably won't let you, but if you ever want to come on the show, like we would love to ask you, just pick your brain about your thought process, because I think for a lot of us we've got theories, we've got hypotheses on like how the development of this game is. Like we've got data that kind of points us in one direction or than the other, but sometimes it's really just nice to hear it from the mouth of the developer. Like, why did you choose this? And you have this like super complicated theory, and they're like, oh, well, because of X, and you're like, oh, okay, well, that makes sense.
Sure.
It made sense that he'd have a hammer.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah. And I think hearing him talk, like you could look at any given points update and be like, why did they do this way? Why didn't they change this if they changed this, etc. But just to hear him talk, it's like, okay, this is an intelligent person who has at least seen how Warcry plays out when it's played like how the competitive players play it. And yet you can tell from some of how he talks, like he is also pretty like aware of the fact that Warcry is a mostly casual game, when he's talking about what the new Seraphon can do for you, stuff like that. It seems like he's pretty aware of the fact that most people are being pretty chill. Like when he went on a little explainers about some of the heroes. About thank you, Emily. Little explainers about some of the heroes that you could play now. He was kind of speaking a pretty casual language, even though for the first 6 minutes of the video he was like showing, it almost felt like he was showing us as he took a tour of what competitive Warcry looks like. He was just like showing us that he could pass the test, like he was just showing us that he knew what was going on, which was just interesting to see. And so like even if there's like one decision I would disagree with and one decision I hadn't thought of, it's like, who cares about that stuff? Like it's just like care has been put into it, which gave me a lot more faith than I would otherwise have.
Yeah, so let's talk about real quick, and I want to kind of save some of the best for last, but just real quick, obviously there's a lot of updates to this, and I encourage folks to jump into it. I'm going to share some of the screen here so that we can get into it a little bit. But look, there's hundreds of Wanchi updates, Wildercore Hunter updates. The funny thing is about those updates, they updated to how I interpreted the rule anyway. You know what I mean? About like you took the damage and then you could like back away. I think that's how like 99% of the people did it. But like there's that 1% out there who's like, no, it's not written like that. You're like, okay.
There was a thing of like you could have argued that you take the damage and backing away actually doesn't stop the damage coming to you. But if you have a treasure or something and you get this, but I don't know, it's like, or like if it's one of those things where if you kill something on an objective, you could disengage off the objective and then you die off the objective. It's just like weird corner case stuff that I'm glad they got rid of.
Yeah. So they did a bunch of updates to little things here or there. I want to talk about here, let me find the right page. They added a whole bunch of units here, right? A whole bunch of fighters.
Cool.
So the Grimhold Exile, right? They added him. They added the Volkite Berserker with the it was like the right profile for. Actually, he was there before, right?
Yeah.
He was there before. They added the Code Right for KO. They added some. They added some other ones with some abilities in there, which I think is great. Like a lot of these aren't terrible, right? Like this Grimhold Exile is not terrible. Like he's 5 attacks, 4 strength, 4, 2-4 damage. Like pretty good, and he's got a decent, an interesting ability about like just doing a lot of damage to some big tough guys, right? So go check these out. You got a lot of this. I think it's interesting. He talked about Seraphon adding in all of the new units. We've been asked a long time ago, like, when is the new Seraphon like units coming out? Because I mean, these models came out over a year ago. Like it was a long, maybe even like 18 months ago. Like these models came out. They came out a long time ago, and so it's nice that they put these in here. I thought that it was going to come out in like a new compendium or some sort of Tome of Champions or something like that. I think by the way, this FAQ dashes all hope of like Tome of Champions that we might be getting.
Absolutely. This is all the content you would have hoped for in a Tome of Champions.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So John specifically talked about these Seraphon in his video. I thought it was interesting, his take on them, talking about how, cavalry's great, but they're actually not that great. He's like, they've got some serious drawbacks. But with these ones, they've got their triple ability that lets them jump up onto terrain, which is actually kind of cool, So, but
and then I read it. I'm not convinced because it's like it's just a isn't it like a bonus move of 3 inches?
Yeah, up to 3 inches, and they can fly as part of that move action.
Yeah,
so it's like
the
a
base is
charge
pretty
though. Like
big.
once you do, like, if you come into contact with something, then you do damage the value of the dice. It's not terrible, but it's only 3 inches, so you have to be really at the base of that terrain piece,
Right.
To get up.
But I think they're good regardless. Like they're just good fighters,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that triple is just kind of gravy, right? And they shouldn't have an easy time getting on terrain. So the fact that they have to really pay for it is good. And
So,
tearing bite on 4425, like that's pretty good.
yeah. So there's Seraphon stuff that was added. There's some Nurgle, right? He talked about how the Harbinger of Decay has a new, his new model has a new weapon, so you can actually use both profiles if you want, because you can use your old model and then the new model. So he brought that, which is kind of cool. We got a Lord of Hubris right here. We've got some Slave to Darkness that include the Thoricons and the Ogroids, which I think a lot of people were waiting for these for a long time. Having these Slave to Darkness models as well. Mortisan, Ossifector. Now, the interesting thing, and some Gloomspite gets like Snarlfang Riders, right, with them. So, and a Blood Pelt Hunter for the Ogremon tribes. Now, I don't want to get into like all of these different units. I think for the most part, their profiles are actually pretty good. I think they're in keeping with the recent releases that we have, where the profiles I think are made maybe for a little bit more for the competitive meta rather than just pure flavor, if that makes sense. Because I think like a lot of the older war bands, especially the early 2.0s and some of the late 1.0s, like they were just like very flavorful, and so some of the fighter profiles are not that great. And you're just like, oh yeah, this is cool. This is a cool model with a interesting ability, but their profile is so terrible and their points cost is so not right that you'd never see them on the table. I think that these were made so that you would actually start to see these on the table. That's kind of that's a very broad generalization, I know, because like I just talked about like 4 different factions, you know what I mean? But as I was going through, my general feeling was like, oh, these are pointed appropriately for where we are in Warcry. Let me put it that way. So that was my general thought for them.
Yeah. Yep.
Jason, you want to go first?
No, I just say I think the Blood Pelt Hunter's the new Gut Lord. In my opinion, he's right at what is the old point cost was 280, and he has basically the first Fang's pull bonus attack pull capability, and he's got basically a range from 1 inch to 8 inches at a pretty significant damage profile.
Yeah.
5-inch move, which is above average, and 30 hit points.
Yeah, there's only one tiny little blind spot, like in between 2 and 3, if you can sneak in there. The shoot then pull is pretty cool because you could shoot then pull then double attack with the melee.
Exactly.
That could be pretty fun depending on what you're doing it with.
Yeah.
I don't.
And he's a leader, so he gets access to those like move after you kill, or
you get another attack after you kill, or that kind of stuff for a double.
Sure. I mean, he won't be doing this and that, but
sure.
He's good. I think he's okay. He's not my favorite, I think, of the things that we got, but yeah, I think you're right, Justin, that like everything here, maybe not everything, but like most of what's here like does a thing, which in old Warcry, just not everything did a thing.
Right.
Not everything did anything. Um, and so that's a really nice change to see. I think I may be a little bit more skeptical about like all of these things being in competitive play,
Sure. Sure.
but we don't know what competitive play means anymore. Like, other than that it involves Vex more, and you know, other than the fact that it involves some of the Underworld's teams that they forgot.
Yeah.
Uh, Besides that, we don't really know what competitive play looks like. So who knows? Maybe these are costed for competitive play.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, look, go check these out. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the Discord. What you think about some of these new units? So it's Darkness got a bunch, like we said. Gloomspite gets have some. Seraphon's probably the big winner in terms of getting a lot of them. What do you think that they didn't? It's interesting they don't have Iron Jaws in here, like the new Iron Jaws models.
Yeah, that
That's
was too
kind of
bad.
weird, don't you think?
No weird brutes, no none of the naked big brutes. Yeah, that was too bad.
I have operated under the theory that the Iron Jaws was going to get the FEC treatment where they got their own kind of like PDF update,
Mhm.
and I wonder if that's still a thing where they have it ready, they're just not ready to release it,
Mm.
but it's its own PDF and they just didn't want to just hand jam it into this thing, So I wonder if that's kind of the route they're taking with Iron Jaws.
Could be.
Yeah,
That would certainly explain it. Yeah, and that's kind of the only glaring hole, right? Like
yeah,
I can't think of any other obvious groups of fighters that aren't in here,
right.
which is really nice. And one of the things he said in the video was moving forward, one of their main sort of focuses for Warcry was going to be making sure that every model gets in there right away,
Yeah.
uh, which did make this Iron Jaws thing more glaring, but I thought was just so cool to hear that they're at least,
Man,
aware of it.
I would love it that like a week after AOS drops its box, that here's the Warcry PDF for the rats and for the Stormcast.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Here you go. Here's your Warcry profiles. And they've been pretty good about some of those. Like when, for example, the Order of Vizier stuff came out, right? This Heroes of Cinderfall, like here's your AOS profiles and here's your Warcry profiles. Boom, here you go,
That stuff even felt more designed for Warcry than it was for AOS.
Yeah, totally. I agree. It was the same thing with Black Talon, right? As soon as Black Talon dropped, here's a Warcry profile for it, which I thought was awesome.
Yeah,
All
and
right.
she's way cooler in
Yeah.
Warcry than she is in AOS.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. All right. Let's talk about some of the factions that got maybe readjusted the most. I think we start with Caradron Overlords. They're kind of the big ones to talk about right now. One of the major changes was the fight for profitability. It changed to where it reads, until the end of the battle round, add 1 to the attack's characteristics of melee attack actions made by friendly fighters while they're within 3 inches of this fighter. If this fighter is carrying treasure or is within 3 inches of an objective, add 1 to the attack's characteristics of all attack actions made by those fighters instead. So the KO people out there have torn their clothes and they're in sackcloth and ashes right now, lamenting the changes of this fight for profit, because this was pretty much the key ability that you were going for when you're playing with KO, right?
Yeah, the old favorite way of playing KO is just dead. Like, it's not even possible anymore, where you would go fight for profit, wait on your engine rigger, and then if they didn't manage to get into combat with you, you would just blow them off the board with your Aether cannons. Sometimes people would get cheeky and have a grunt stock mortar in there. I was shocked that they nerfed that too, because not that many people were using it, but lots of people were
Yeah.
talking about it as something you should be using, which, nothing escapes the all-seeing eye of John Bracken.
Yeah.
And so that whole playstyle is just dead. You can't do it. You can't do it with the new fight for profit, right? Because you'd have to like walk your way to an objective, and then
Yep.
the Aether cannons would have to kind of walk up with you and like move 3 up and then shoot something like that. I mean, it's very difficult to make it work. So That's
So what
for
was
the best.
the old fight for profit? Just so that we have a delta
Yeah, I
comparison
can.
right here.
It was +1 attack regardless of melee or range, and then if you're within a treasure or carrying a treasure or on an objective, then it's +2 melee or
Yeah.
range.
Mhm.
And now here it's
So
always +1, but the
yeah,
bonus is +1 to melee or ranged.
melee or ranged. So
Mhm.
you're only going to get +1, which
Yeah.
for the Aether Cannon was a big deal, right?
Now
Because
you can't even buff it at all. Yeah.
yeah, I mean the Aether Cannon only has like one shot, right? Yeah,
Right.
it's like one
1,
shot.
5, 5, 10.
Yeah,
Yeah.
1, 5, 5, 10.
One
And so when you were
opportunity.
given it two shots, all of a sudden it was getting, standing still at 10 inches, and it was getting
Yeah.
6 shots that could do, 5 to 10 damage. It got ridiculous. But now it's only 2 shots, 4 maximum if it's, shooting twice.
And let's be real, in 3 out of 4 games, KO wasn't getting that +2 because
Right.
they didn't need it, right? They were
They
just
didn't need
sitting
it.
there, not
Yeah.
even worrying about getting to the objective and just living with the +1.
Yeah.
And now they can't even do that, right?
They
Because
have to get to the objective or carrying treasure, right?
Mhm.
And
Right.
it's your leader that has to get to the objective and the Aether Cannon to get there too. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's
And
gonna
the Aether
be perfect.
Cannons cost whatever many points more. I think it's 20 points more or something ridiculous.
Yeah.
And the mortars, the Grunstock mortars cost 15 points more because that was like the really nice one if you weren't Aether Cannoning.
Yeah,
So it's
let's talk about their points right here. We've got
yeah.
Arcanaut Privateer went up 5 points, which I think that doesn't seem like a lot, but it actually is.
Mhm.
Like I mean, it's a 10% increase, to their thing.
The first thing I heard some people say online was like, that's not enough. And I played with KO. I actually just got back from my LGS. I played 2 games with KO.
Mhm.
Uh, it felt like enough, honestly. Like
Yeah,
my Arcanauts just felt weaker than my opponent's Marauders.
I think it's
And
enough knowing that you're not
yeah,
going to get +2 to your attacks characteristics with the pistol. Do you know what I mean? Like they've
yeah,
got
yeah.
to get. I mean, they do have a melee attack. It's not great. You know what I mean? But they do have a melee attack. So look, I think 5 points is kind of enough. I think it's
Yeah.
enough for them. We'll see how it shakes out.
They play really differently now,
Yeah.
I think.
The big
They
points
don't
increase.
suck,
Yeah, go ahead.
but
Sorry.
they don't suck, but they play really differently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, the big difference is the Grunstock Thunderer with Aether Cannon. I mean, that went up 20 points. It's now 130. The Thunderer with Mortar went up 15 points, and then the Admiral went up 10 points, which is funny because I don't know that a lot of people took the Admiral. Do you know a lot of people that took the Admiral? Most everybody was taking the Arcanaut Captain because it was just less points, right?
Yeah, that guy was more popular, but I think the Admiral was better
Yeah. Okay.
for whatever that counts for. Yeah.
Yeah.
Some
Look.
people thought the Endrin Rigger was better, the
Sure.
140 point guy.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Having your privateer pistols, which is your chaff, that was super cheap chaff comparatively, go up, but then your real like big, your real big nasty elites go up as much as they did. I think that just changes them quite a bit. They've got to KO is going to have to absolutely rethink how they play. Do you think that this nerfed them into oblivion? Do they become like a C tier like warband at this point and stay there?
No, but after playing, after playing 2 games with them, I'm not sure they're better than Fire Slayers. I think they just might be in the same spot Fire Slayers are, which is
Okay.
like solid.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
They definitely like Nurgle got removed from the game, right?
Right.
Nurgle is no longer part
Yeah.
of Warcry. KO didn't get that,
Right.
like you can still play Arcanauts. But they don't feel the same. You can't. The loss of Fight for Profit is just so huge. But I was playing them with some pretty good allies like a Quester and a Annihilator Grandhammer. Came away feeling like the list was pretty good. Maybe not like top at whatever competitive play is going to be. I didn't think it was at the top of that, but it felt pretty good. So KO is solid, but there's other better stuff, I think, now.
I think that people, if they really want to play KO, are going to find a decent list in there still. You know what I mean? Like, I think that they can still, I think there's still a competitive list to be had with
The
KO.
Spears.
Yeah. I think they're going to figure something out with them and realize that this nerf isn't as terrible as they thought it was. It's just that they were using the Aether Cannon crutch way too hard, you know, and the Fight for Profit crutch way too hard. So it's a good thing. I'm just going to run through real quick the points update. There wasn't really a lot of other. I mean, there's some ability changes that we talked about with like Hunters of Wanchi and Monster Killers and stuff like that. Those are like, I think, more clarifications rather than like major changes that happened. And so I think the more significant thing are the points changes that we had in here. And I just want to, I'm going to run through some of like Canaanite Shadow Stalkers. They went down, several of theirs went down in points, which is great. I still don't think that makes them like super good. You know what I mean? It's just like, okay, here you go. We talked about KO, Thunderstrike, Stormcast. They all the Annihilator Prime, the Annihilator with Grand Hammer, Annihilator with Meteoric Hammers. They all went up 10 points. Do you think that changes their list profile that much?
I think it removes them from the game. Yeah,
really?
I think. Yeah, they're still good as allies because the Annihilator Prime with the big hammer didn't get touched, and he was my favorite ally from them.
Yeah.
So like, I'm gonna be running him as an ally in every order list to memorialize my Thunderstrike. But Stormcast, the points don't add up. You know, like the points are so hard to make work.
Right.
That I just don't think they add up if you nerf Annihilators. So you could not convince me to take Thunderstrike to an event, you know, under any circumstances. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Stormcast Eternal's Warrior Chamber, Retributor Prime went up 10 points. Paladin with Star Soul Mace went up 10 points. I'm not. I used both of those at one point, actually.
Yeah.
And I'm not. I mean, it's fine. Like, you just don't see Paladin with Star Soul Mace out there too much. It can do some damage. It's got like a 4/8 profile. And it's like got, you know, strength 5 or something like that. Like it's pretty beefy, but the problem is it has like 3 move. Like it doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah, we had somebody win a Warhammer World Tournament with Paladin with Star Soul
did
Mace.
they? Okay.
So I think that's why. Yeah, I think his name's Phylax on the Discord. I think that's why this was nerfed, was because he did it in front of them.
Yeah, maybe.
And it's really hard to make like lists that really make the best out of it, but you can do it. But I don't think Warhammer or Warrior Chamber is dead because like they have plenty of other move 3 guys that are pretty good. Like they've got their protectors, they've got other things to turn to.
Yeah. We'll see how it comes with this new Ruination Chamber too, because it sounds like they're going to be pulling a lot from the Warrior Chamber. So into that. So I'll be kind of interested in seeing that. For the most part, Seraphon went down, except for Kiki Taxa went up 10 points, which I think is probably a good thing because he was like the constant like filler ally, right in there. Hunters of Huan Chi, they went down. They still all suck. 65 points is still too much for them.
I think so. Okay.
It should be 30
I
points.
forgot how much you hate them. That's
my
funny.
gosh. It should be like I painted them and I love the models, but like they honestly, like when you have a strength 2 model, like you're just hitting 5s and 6s the entire time. Jason and I played a game and I think I had one guy actually hit like one time, you know, because you're just like got 2 attacks, like hitting on 5s and 6s. You're like, this is fun. This is really fun.
That's really funny.
Yeah. So anyway, let's see. Fulmoroid Crusher and Orgoroid Myrmidon, they both went up 10. I don't know. Like, I don't know if that prevents me from putting a FOMO into my list. I mean, it makes you maybe have to do the math a little bit better, but I don't think 10 points is going to prevent me from putting a FOMO in there.
I think the thing that's going to stop me from playing FOMO Crusher is just that new Underworlds team is so much better than FOMO Crusher, like regardless of whether they got nerfed or not. I mean, when FOMO was at 260, maybe you could justify not playing the Underworlds team if all you care about is winning.
Mhm.
But now it's like it costs 10 more points. The Underworlds team is like 180 point fighter plus a 115, so that's what is that? That's
205.
295
Yeah.
versus 270. It's like you get so much more for that 25 points
Yeah.
uh that I think that's hurting the FOMO Crusher more than this nerf is hurting it.
Interesting. Okay. Disciples of Zinch Arcanites, those all went down significantly. Like the Carrick
Yeah.
Acolytes, they all like went down by almost 20 points. So, but again, that's probably like they're probably down to near where they need to be. They're probably still not low enough. It just depends. I mean, they're going to be toughness 4 with the shield, you know what I mean? But they're probably all still got like 8 wounds on them. So
I have no idea if they're good enough now. I'm looking
I
forward
don't
to
know that
finding
much
out.
either. We'll have to do a breakdown on the Arcanites at some point.
Yeah.
All right, so Maggot King of Nurgle, Nurglings and Plague Bearers were like the hot thing, right? Plague Bearer with a Chimera, Plague Bearers with like other big allies or whatever. They went up 10 points. Nurglings went up 10 points. I didn't see a lot of people using Nurglings, but maybe that's just not in our meta. But Plague
I use
Bearers,
Nerdlings
did you?
always.
Okay.
I never left home without a Nerdlings.
Oh, that's cool.
But I was the only person playing them,
Mm-hmm.
and so it hurts that they nerfed it. It's like
I guess it's all because of you. Then they
Yeah,
said
you
that
stand in
Dan
your
guy, he
own
keeps
data.
bringing Nurglings.
Yeah,
We got to
Yeah.
slow that down.
who's bringing Nurglings?
No one's supposed to be buying those models anymore.
if he can win with it, they must be busted.
That's right. All right, so we talked about. Oh, excuse me. We talked about the Shrike talent, how it went down 40 points.
Yeah,
Which,
that's
to be
hilarious.
honest, his profile 170 makes a lot more sense with his profile.
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
know, like it was way overcosted. It still had 1.0 points, in my opinion, and he got penalized for his movement. But yeah, so it's like 40 points is crazy. Cypher Lords, some of their Mirrorblades went down 10 points. I still don't think they're good fighters at 120, 125. They're in that mid-range fighter, category. The Broodmaster for Tarantula's Brood went down 20 points. That doesn't fix the faction from what they nerfed. I mean, the spiders were the thing that made it so terrifying in 1.0, and they nerfed that so bad that like the other units didn't, or the other models couldn't really make up for that nerf, in my opinion.
I think this guy is only just because it's like, hey, if you were out there and the only way you could figure out to make your Tarantulos Brood playable was to put a FOMO in,
Mm-hmm.
and we nerfed the FOMO, it's like, here, man, have
Sure.
a little bonus.
Sure.
Like we
Yeah.
know you're bringing the Broodmaster because you have to. So here, we'll buff the Broodmaster by more than we nerfed the FOMO, and so that you don't get mad at us. Okay.
Yeah. Horns that has shoot, the Shatterer went up 5 points, which probably could have gone up a little bit more, in my opinion, but maybe it could have gone up to 10, to 65. But I'm okay with 5 points.
I like 5. I was surprised not to see the Flame Hurler here. I think I'd heard some people say that they felt like Flame Hurlers, even though they hated them, were kind of a necessary check on the meta because they kill swarms.
Yeah.
So maybe this is essentially John saying that that's what he believes too.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was surprised by that, but I'm not upset about it. But I was just a little surprised.
Rotmire Creed, Carrying Catcher with Impaler and Carrying Catcher with Snatcher Hook. They both went down 10 points, so 100 and 105. I actually think that this makes them pretty viable at this point range for what they are. They got a 2-inch range, and I think it's a what is it, a 4-4-2-4 profile? I think, off the top of my head. Not terrible, right?
Not bad for 100.
Yeah, and I think they've got 15 wounds. So
pretty good for.
No, they don't have 15. I think
they have 12.
They might have 12. Yeah, which is fine.
Yeah, but I think for 100 points, that's not bad. It's not bad. So, Claws of Karnak, Hound of Wrath went down 20 points to 170. I think this too is maybe here. We'll let you have your FOMO in that as well, right? There's that 20 points. All right, so Askergan True Blade, the Cursed Blood went down 10 points. Okay, that's nice.
Again, this is what my buddy Cody was saying. They buffed the prettiest model in every one of these bad bespoke warbands. They were just like, we don't know how to actually get it into competitive play, so whatever the prettiest model is here, we'll just make it a little better.
That's fair. I'm glad to see that Night Haunt across the board got a lot of cuts to their points.
Yeah.
So the Chain Rafts went down 15 points to 70. That was so needed. They were so overcosted at 95 points. It was ridiculous, you know. And Dreadscythe Harridan went down to 100. Knight of Shrouds 170. Knight of Shrouds on Ethereal Steed 250. Mirrormore Banshee 115. Slasher Chrome 150. I think the Harridan is good price. I think all of those decent prices for those. I still don't think that it fixes Night Haunt because they have a lot of old profile, which is like 1-4 on almost all their fighters.
It's the wet noodle problem.
The wet noodle, you know, like there's hardly any that are like 2-4. There's none. There's like one that is 3-6, and that's the Executioner, and he only has like 2 attacks.
Yeah.
You know, so
I'm not saying this is good, but let me try to sell you on. So this Knight of Shrouds went down 20 points.
Yes.
And then these Chain Rasps, 15 points each.
Yep.
So if you start with a Knight of Shrouds and 6 Chain Rasps, you're saving whatever it is, like 20 plus, was that 60, 90, you're saving 110 points, right? So now that lets you put in 1 more Chain Rasp and the blessing for 1 more wild dice, which gets you another resurrection. So now you have another fighter and you have another resurrection over the
very
course.
True. Very true.
So,
100%.
You're not killing anything still, right?
Yeah, right. Exactly.
But they're having a tough time clearing you off the board.
That's true. I will say this. They did update one of their abilities. It was the Frightful Touch ability, where that was only limited to the Spirit Host. Only the Spirit Host could do the Frightful Touch, right?
Yeah.
And what it did is on a 5-up, you did your critical damage instead of a 6-up, right? And so, your regular hits counted as critical hits is what it was. All your regular hits counted as criticals. They now open that up to the entire faction. The entire faction can now use that. And then if you use it on the Spirit Host that has the proper room mark or the additional room mark that they just said, it gets an extra attack action as well. Or like a boon to their attack. I can't remember if it's a...
Is that a triple?
It is a triple. Yeah. But you have a lot of things out there that have strength. I mean, there's a bunch that are strength 3. You have a couple that are like 5 attacks, strength 4, that do like 2-5 damage or 1-4 damage. That all of a sudden could be doing like a whole bunch of 4 damage. You know, just from the attack. So that I think that change helped quite a bit actually. So I'm curious to test them out and just see what you have. And I agree. I think they've got a little bit more staying power with the points drops. So we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, I think there's things you can do with Night Haunt now. I think you have to play really cowardly, but I think you can. I think you can achieve that cowardly play style in a way that's much more is going to work at least on the board.
Yeah. Ossiarch Bone Reapers, they all went up 5 points. One went up 10 points. A Great Blade. I think that's absolutely needed with their toughness 5, right? Like
they were too good.
They're just so good. Now the Soulblight Gravelord, you talked about this, how we've got Graveguard in here, we got zombies, we got skeletons, we've got the Sons of Velmorn, Bladeborn here. All these have different points costs, and they all I think attack the right thing. Like a zombie now 50 points is great, Skeletons now 50 points is great. Like at 40 points, they were just so undercosted. Like it was ridiculous,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And so, adding that makes a difference. And, the Grave Guard going up makes a difference. And the Bladeborn fighters, because people would use those Sons of Elmore in a lot of different allies. So them going up makes a difference too. So
Like this is a big nerf to Flesh Eater Courts,
Yeah.
for example. I mean, not a big 15 points, but like,
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, like, that's 15 points that when people were doing the math, like you'd have like 5 points left over. So now
Yeah.
you're going to have to make a choice, right? Like, what do you put in there? So that is a big deal.
I was just they
go ahead.
missed some of the other Underworld fighters. Like I think Sepulchral Guard are
Mhm.
just as good as Sons of Elmore. Maybe not quite as because of the resurrection thing, but like, I think they missed a couple things in terms of the Underworlds, but then it's just on, competitive players to prove it, right? So
Yeah.
that's fine. I think everyone's in a better place than they were before.
For sure. All right, let's talk about destruction. This is one that really raised my eyebrows. Brugit went up 20 points. And I think that I 100% agree with 20 points on the Brugit. Because he was kind of an undercosted fighter. He had toughness 4, I believe, 12 wounds.
He had 12 wounds. I think he might have been T3, but
Maybe?
he did have the 12 wounds, which for 70 points, it was like you would run him, and even if you didn't use the ability, you were still so happy with him because for 70 points and 12 wounds, that was just so powerful.
And we had, at Nova, we had Justin Orton's Double Trouble list that had 2 Gut Lords and 2 Brugits. And like that is not even possible now. With the Brugit going up so much and the Gut Lord going up as well, right? So,
and I was hearing people saying like, well, the Brugit's not that broken. It's really the threat of the Brugit that does stuff. It's like, well, yeah, the threat of the Brugit is worth 90 points, not 70.
Exactly. Exactly.
So good riddance to that guy. I think, Warcry 2.0 has sort of been about Brugits almost as much as it's been about move 3 chaff.
Yeah.
So if we're going to get the move 3 chaff, we got to get the Brugit too. I was kind of hoping we'd see some of the other stuff in destruction maybe buffed a little to make up for it, but I don't know what. And there's still some interesting stuff in destruction. But how about you go on to Iron Jaws and Ogres?
Yeah. Well, I was going to mention that Prague Danetta went up 15 points, which he our friend Peter of the show is probably like dying inside now because Prague and Brugit got nerfed. So and he used an Ardboy boss in his list. So like which went up 5 points. So it just showed that Peter understood where the points efficiencies really were while he had the chance. Right.
And they were chasing Peter.
Yeah, exactly. They're definitely chasing Peter. So, all right. So Iron Jaws, again, we didn't get like the new updated units. We have our boy boss went up 5 points. The regular our boy went up 5 points. The brute boss with boss chopper went up 10. And the brute boss with boss claw and brute smasher went up 10 points. So I think those are fine.
Were you guys surprised that they nerfed one of the 3 Ard boys, but not the other 2? Because I've always thought that all 3 of them are roughly equal power level, I guess is my personal thing.
Yeah.
So now it's like, I'll take the other 2 then, and I just won't take this one, and that's fine.
That is interesting.
Because like some of my Iron Jaws lists are actually very affected by this, and some of them are not affected by at all. And so I was curious about why they did it.
Okay, I had to confirm. But oh no, they do have the different ones.
Yeah. Because they still got the shield, and I would always run at least 2 shields. I'd go like 2 shields and a couple big choppas, stuff like that. So, yeah.
It is weird.
I don't have a big thing to stand on about it. I just thought it was odd.
I do think that's weird because this is how they do it with all of them is like usually they're pointed around the same price, but you have like one has more attacks, one has less strength, one has more strength, one has less attacks, one has more toughness, like you know what I mean, like and less attacks or something like that. So I don't know, maybe just the math of it with the 4 attack, strength 4 was like
Yeah.
enough that it was significantly. I don't think it was that significantly more.
Yeah, I thought the DPA was pretty similar between that one and the one big Joppa, the 200 one.
Yeah, because you got 2-4 instead of 1-4. I don't know. That's kind of interesting. All right, Ogre Ma tribes. Tyrant went up 10. Gutlord went up 10. Crusher went up 10. All of those, I could have gone more with the Crusher, or sorry, the Gutlord. I think the Gutlord should have been 315, actually. The Gutlord's ridiculous. Like
Is this from Jason beating you too much?
Oh,
Jason, what have
way
you
too
done
much.
to him?
Thank you, Justin. Thank you, Jason. Yeah.
I mean, I know that Justin beat you with the Gutlord, but like you play Jason more often, right?
I do. Yeah. And that Gutlord. You know, the funny thing is I was more scared of the Gutlord than I was the Tyrant. And I don't know that that's like a rational fear.
Interesting.
But, you know, that 5'10 like profile.
I thought you were going to say you're more scared of the Gutlord than you were Jason.
Yeah, well.
Yeah. I think the Tyrant going up a little bit makes sense. That guy can kill almost anything he gets in contact with.
Yeah.
I still wish the Chaos Lord and Karka Drake would come down. It's just like not possible to build a list around that guy, and he's just such a cool looking model.
Mm-hmm.
But he's like the most expensive. He's like 375.
Yeah.
Yeah, and him and the Gnash Tooth too. I would have loved to see the Gnash Tooth. I mean, but if you over nerf or over buff either of those, then that's a problem. But a little bit could have happened there.
Yeah, I think I was only comparing that to the Tyrant, right? The Tyrant's a massive beast. He's now 325. This guy's still 375, but this guy also can do 8 inches around the battlefield, so he's significant. But anyways.
So the last one with the Ogre Ma tribes is Quiv, who is part of Hrothgorn's Man Trappers. He went up 15 points from 45, which is your normal Nobbler cost, to 60. And I think that is an excellent move because he was such an easy add-in to get to round out a list and just get that extra little bit. And especially since what he did is he basically gives Hrothgorn a bonus attack, right?
He does do that, and also he has more health at the same cost, which is wild, right?
Yeah.
And so he had to go. I mean, I don't understand why Bushwhacker survived.
I
Bushwhacker has
I thought that was interesting.
That was weird to me. Because I was seeing people run Quiv and Bushwhacker in lists that didn't even have Hrothgorn, right? Which is not what you want, really. I mean, it's not the biggest deal, but it's like not really what you want. So, yeah, I was surprised to see Bushwhacker escape.
Let me ask you this. Do you feel like this fact was complete?
I think, I don't know. I don't want to be accused of looking a gift horse in the mouth. But they didn't have any elves.
Right.
And, just missing, like, just some of those weird little things. I could have listened to a MetaWatch article that was an hour long, or a MetaWatch video that was an hour long.
Yeah.
Like if he had gone through every single Grand Alliance and his thoughts on where they're at, like if he had done like a state of the Grand Alliance for 15 minutes on every single one of them, I'd have eaten that up, because some of these changes none of the changes themselves are dumb, right? But some of the like omissions are like,
Yeah, a couple of head scratchers. Listen, I feel like it's half complete. I feel like there's a lot of other things that they could also be doing. Again, like we're missing the other Iron Jaws models. That's one, right? I think that you could be taking a look at some of the Gloomspite Gits and repointing some of those, because like you have certain ones that you're using and certain ones that you're not, right? Like, I mean, there's so many factions out there. Like, we could have looked at a whole bunch of Slaves to Darkness. Jason makes a point about the Carcadron. Like, we don't ever see that on the table at all.
Yeah. And the Chaos Warriors,
Yeah. Like, I mean, there's so many things in here where it's like, if we wanted to be comprehensive, we could have been. Like, we really could have gone through and repointed this. And I mean, it would have almost made like a new Toma Champions 2024 in a sense, So it makes me wonder if we might be expecting another fact like July, for example, and that hits some other factions as well.
And he implied as much in that MetaWatch video where
Mm-hmm.
he said that they'd be continuing to monitor, which is not the kind of thing we've ever heard from them before,
Mm-hmm.
And if it's like, even if it's not July, but it's like 6 months from now, and what would that be, like November?
Yeah.
That would still be a big deal, right? If we got
Yeah.
another one of these in November. So, yeah, I think it definitely leaves room for more. I think that they didn't want to change too many things,
Sure.
right? I get that impulse. It's like it probably took them hours to decide this stuff, and then it's like, I'm supposed to be testing the new Ideneth bespoke or whatever, and I'm,
Right.
doing this instead. So, right. I mean, most of these people are overworked. So I get it, but yeah, it was interesting what wasn't there.
Yeah. And look, I mean, there's a whole bunch in there too that has been recently updated. I mean, FEC has all new points, right? Cities has all new points and structure. We've got a whole bunch of things that has been updated. So I would say that there's probably a third of the warbands out there that probably could still be looked at a little bit more. And I'm thinking that with the Slaves to Darkness release, right, that they're going to be having coming out with the Dark Oath stuff, what a great opportunity to put out a PDF for just Slaves to Darkness in general. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so maybe they address some of those factions like that. Rather than like let's just throw it in the fat for now because we got a bigger product coming out. I don't know.
And there's a really good chance of that. I mean, and who knows, maybe the elf thing is like we have more elves coming. Haven't heard of any of that on the horizon, but who knows, right?
Yeah.
And the Slaves to Darkness rework is pretty clearly coming. I mean, who knows when we're gonna get, like, when we get the rules for this Dark Oath box, like, who knows what's gonna actually be in those rules. And like I actually played against Slaves to Darkness today with the KO, and the game went right down to the wire and was really, really close. And it was, my buddy Cody had like some Ogroid Therodons and a bunch of Marauders, and I came away thinking like my little Stormcast combo was better than the Therodons, but that the Marauders were actually better than 55-point Arcanauts. That I actually really missed those 30 points that I could have used to do something, right? And when I posted that, I think Mike Sansom, I told him our impressions off of these new points and new fighters, and he was like, well, being worse than Marauders is a temporary problem.
Right.
Because who knows with this new Marauder box what we're going to get.
Very true.
Yeah. I do think the new Marauders are probably going to be decent, right? They'll probably do something interesting, but
I agree. Yeah, I totally agree. So listen, I am super happy that we have this FAQ. I think it's taken up a lot of time for us to talk today. So I'm going to propose that we save our faction breakdown for next time.
totally.
Just because we've kind of broken down a lot of different, points and combos and things like that. So we'll save the our river dancers for next time, and get into it. So we will wrap up the show by talking a little bit about the ITC, and let me show you a little bit of what this is. So, okay, for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, you're probably like, for those of you who do know what I'm talking about, the ITC is synonymous with competition, like competitiveness with Warhammer. Just a little bit of a background. The ITC stands for the International Tournament Circuit. Okay. And what it is it was started by Frontline Gaming. They're based out of Las Vegas. They're the ones that run the LVO, the ACO, the Cherokee Open. They're the ones that run all of these opens that give golden tickets to the worlds. They kind of have set the tournament standards. They started doing this in like 2008, 2010. and they actually started the ITC. Now, what is the ITC? The ITC started because a group from around the country, right, said, hey, we play in lots of different events, but we kind of want a way to show how good people are across the country, right? And even across the world. And, like if you're winning a lot of local tournaments, but you're losing at big tournaments, that might say something about you. If you're winning at local ones and big ones, that shows that you are like one of the best in the nation. And there was no definitive way to show that other than anecdotally, like, oh, he won the LVO. Oh, he won the Nova Open. Oh, he won, like the Atlantic City Open. Like, other than just kind of tracking that a little bit, there was no definitive way to show how competitive people were across the country, playing in different events. And so they started the ITC, and the way that it works is that you get points for competing in events. And the points are based off of your placement in the tournament, how you got there. So, for example, you'll get more points in a five game tournament if you did win, loss versus loss, win, win. Because it's harder to go 4 wins and a loss than it is a loss and 4 wins, right? So you'll get more points for like winning early and throughout than if you kind of had the same record, but you started with a loss, right? So it's where you place in the tournament with your wins and losses, your how you got there, your strength of schedule. There's kind of a whole formula that goes into it, right? And you'll get a point value for your tournament thing. So, for example, I'm going to show you this right here. Gavin Greigar, he is or let's use Anthony Trentinelli. He was on the podcast last year, actually, talking about his ITC. Here, I'll zoom in on this too. His ITC run that he had. So if I click on his name, you'll see that he has these tournament placings, right? So he placed first at the Everwinter Grand Tournament, and he got 229 points for it. At the Nova Open, he got 6th. He got 217 points, et cetera, right? This one right here is a Grand Tournament. He got 103 points, right? So here's the deal. You get points, again, for how well you did in the tournament, but it also, the amount of points you get determines on how big the event was. So, for example, if you have an 8 to 16 person tournament, you're only going to maybe get 100 points maximum if you win. Now, if you get first place at one of these grand tournaments, as you can see here, like he got 229 at this grand tournament, right? So, like, the more people there are, the more points there are available to have. And your ITC ranking throughout the year is a mix of different tournaments. So, the Bell of the Lost Souls did a great article on this, and they basically, I'm going to pull this out right here. Under the current system, up to 6 events may count towards your score. Okay? So you could play in 30 events, but they're going to take your 6 best scores of your 30 events, right? 4 may only be our Rogue Trader tournaments, which are 3+ rounds, 8 to 27 players. 5 may be GT-sized events, 5+ rounds. That's 20. GT is 28 to 57 players. And then a major, which is 5+ rounds, 58 to at least 255 players, or super major, 7+ rounds, 205+ players, right? So you can play in as many little local tournaments as you want and beat up all your friends in your area, right? But you only get to count 4 out of your 6 of local tournaments. You have to actually go to like 2 grand tournaments or majors to get your full score if you want that, right? Mm-hmm. So that's kind of how it works. You go to events, you get points. It's calculated. They use the same formula for wherever you go, right? For the RTTs and things like that. And so you'll get points that then go up on the leaderboard, as we kind of saw here. With Age of Sigmar, you've got the top 10 right here, leaderboard. So, and then at the end of the year, so Frontline Gaming puts this on, the Las Vegas Open is the last tournament to be counted towards their score. And at the end of the tournament, they'll give out prizes. Sometimes it's cash. A lot of times it's, like pretty significant prizes, like big old Battle Force boxes and all that kind of stuff to the top people of the tournament, but then also like best in factions and things like that. Right. So if I go down, you'll see like team rankings, and then you've got like best alliance destruction. If I go down a little bit further, like here's best daughters of Cain, for example, right? Here's best Zinch, Caleb Walters, who's been on the show too, right? Flesh Eater Corps,
who's probably been the best Zinch for years
decades.
upon years upon years.
Exactly. So anyway, so that's how kind of the ITC works, right? You are able to compete locally or in different majors and things like that, and you get a score, and it kind of just keeps a leaderboard score from across the country that you can, brag to your friends about, that you can compete for prizes, etc. Right? Again, it's put on by Frontline Gaming. This is not an official Warhammer thing. It goes hand in hand with Best Coast Pairings. Best Coast Pairings has the scoring system that will assign the ITC points when the scores are reported. Let's see, what's the other thing? Oh, this is the thing that Jason asked earlier, for example. The Meta Watch stuff that you get for Age of Sigmar and 40K all come from this right here, ITC. They see all the lists that people are playing. They see like what factions are winning. I mean, they get all the data from Best Coast Pairings and all that kind of stuff that they use for the Meta Watch. So it's interesting that, we kind of had that question about like, well, where do we get the data for tournament sticker? It's probably you, Dan, honestly, and probably just kind of anecdotal that they see out there as well. Right. But in the more established games, like there is 40K ITC rankings, there's AOS, there's Kill Team, there is Warhammer Underworlds, actually, ITC. And I think it's interesting that those events right there are the ones that are represented at Worlds, when they have the World Championships. Warcry is not there, and Warcry is one of the few that doesn't have an ITC program, for example. So, all right, I talked a whole bunch about what the ITC is. What questions do you have for me about the ITC?
What is it to you that gets you most excited about wanting the ITC for Warcry?
So, Jason, I'm going to let you answer that. Are you excited about? Would you be excited about having an ITC for Warcry, and what gets you excited about it?
Yes, I would, Justin. Thank you for asking. So I think there's so many different ways we could take advantage of this, right? So Dan, you do a massive amount of like calorie spend collecting data on Warcry, right?
Yeah.
You look at these bigger games like that, have a little bit more years behind them in maturity in their base, like 40K example, or AOS, where when someone thinks I'm going to go run an AOS tournament, they just kind of in their head probably default to I'm going to set it up in Best Coast Pairings. It's just a default. So automatically, because of the kind of the culture, you have this common tool that is used across the board, globally across the game's geographical dispersion. You have this common tool everybody's using, which means you have a common data acquisition point, right? Everything that happens, all tournaments that are run, all the results of those tournaments, all of the lists that go to those tournaments are all collected by this tool and then become accessible to a very large amount of people that are interested in accessing that data. But it also allows you to culminate that data inside of that kind of data lake, a unified data lake where you have confidence. The AOS teams, the 40K teams that are doing development, are doing balancing, they're doing meta watching, they have confidence that those data lakes are being kept relevant to the actual communities that are playing. geographically across the area. So I think that's just one thing. It could maybe connect Warcry players across the globe to share data without having to kind of spend all of the massive amount of calories for pulling data from different types of sources together. That's just one thought to start with.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
100%. In order for this to go off, you have to have a way to track the games and report on the games, and that is best done through a single unified tool, right? Like you'd have to have one tool that like to report on. I want to make a couple points that I thought about, Jason, when you were talking. One, this has kind of a weird self-licking ice cream cone effect. Do you know what I mean? Where it's like you get the machine started and it starts to do its own thing. And to do that, I want to talk about the history of this a little bit. Part of the reason the ITC was formed was that, like, back in 2008, if people wanted to go to competitive tournaments, it was kind of catch as catch can. Like, TOs were just kind of making up rules, and they were making up like terrain decisions. And it's like if you went to one, and this is basically what they told me. That guy right there that you see in the picture, that's one of the that's Reese. He's one of the owners of like the owner of Frontline Gaming. But he was telling me that like he would go to the Bay Area Open and it would be like very professionally run, and then he'd go to like the Fresno Open the weekend later, and it was just like, oh yeah, we have kind of like toilet paper rolls out here to represent terrain. Do you know what I mean? Like it was just like wild difference in the quality of tournaments that you were getting. And TOs would be like, yeah, we don't like that rule too much, so you can't play that faction like you normally have played it, you know. And they just kind of were arbitrarily deciding things. And so part of the ITC was born out of the fact that it provided a standardized way to run a tournament, at least a standardized framework to run a tournament. If you were going to an ITC event, you knew to expect a certain terrain layout, especially in 40K, less so in AOS, but 40K had a certain terrain layout. You know, you knew ahead of time they had like a yearly mission pack that they would put out for the ITC. These are like the 12 missions that you could choose from to make your 5-round tournament. You know, they had standardized FAQs that they were doing before GW did FAQs. And so like for 40K, for example, you have the chapter approved. You also have the general's handbook for AOS and stuff like that. All of that actually was born out of the ITC because they were setting the mission packs, and then it generated kind of a collective like, okay, well, we want a standardized way to score tournaments, a standardized way to like, you know, we know what missions we're going to be playing, etc. You know, things like that. And then GW said, oh, there's an appetite for this, so we're going to put out the chapter approved. We're going to put out, you know, some of these things as well. So it's kind of a self-licking ice cream cone like that, because what happens is they then test it every year, and then they go back and they modify the missions with the input of a lot of playtesters that always want to go to ITC things. And now the ITC became popular because people said, we want to go to these standardized tournaments. We want to go to these tournaments that provide us the level of competitiveness that we want, and that get us these points, which is fun because I can point to myself on a leaderboard, and that's cool, right? And I know what I'm getting in an ITC event. It's not just some like out of the back of someone's house event. Now, I'm not saying that those are bad, but if you think you're going to a competitive one and you go to one and it's really very casual, you're going to be disappointed, right? So that's kind of how it came about, and it started to standardize missions and scoring and all sort of that kind of stuff. So I think that's part of what I think an ITC for Warcry could help with is better missions, better scoring in a kind of a seasonal format in a sense.
I don't think it never gets rid of the two different types of play. Like
Sure.
it supports competitive, but it doesn't get in the way of narrative. You know, you can still have your narrative play that doesn't care about you know, data like, you know, entry. It doesn't care about leaderboards and all that stuff, and doesn't even use BCP, in that sense. But it does provide a way to kind of let the meta spread outside of maybe a geographical concentration of people who play regularly, or the meta tracking or the data tracking across it. So that's an interesting aspect to me as to what it could do. And people like leaderboards, people who really want to play competitively, like the concept of being able to move up the ranks or at least fight for a spot in the ranks there. And people who like to play competitively but don't really care about the leaderboards can just ignore it to one degree or the other. So I think that it could enable the competitive space to get a little bit more competitive, which could have pros and cons. But an example of that, is 40K and AOS. I think they're both pretty competitive, but they still have very different cultures. So I know some people are worried that if it gets too competitive, then it kind of loses its casual culture. I think you could probably still keep the casual game, but there'd be an opportunity for it to get a little bit more competitive as long as the game mechanics still supported it.
So Dan, having heard kind of what the ITC is about, what it does, what are your thoughts about it for Warcry?
I think that GW doesn't do a good enough job writing missions for me to trust them to make a mission pack.
100%. I agree with you. And to be fair, this is exactly what they said in 2008. Frontline Gaming said they do not write missions good enough, so we're going to make our own mission pack.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
And so, so that is a surmountable problem, right?
Yeah. And to be fair, sorry, I'm going to cut you off real quick. You've made your title pack. I mean, you've made your pack to say like, hey, GW missions are okay, but like, here's how we can make them better, right? Like,
I'm working on another. Yeah, I'm working on the sequel to that soon. So that's okay. So that's one problem that we can overcome, but it would be a big obstacle to doing it right now. A lot of other people like brewing their own missions and might bristle a little bit at if we were like to count for these rankings, you have to be using, one of these approved mission packs.
Yeah.
That's tough. Like I know in Norway, the tournament organizer, Krister, recently asked me if I could help him make a skewed mission pack that would only allow elite warbands to win, right? And they were, because the community there was just like, we're sick of chaff models. We want a mission that you can't win without elites. And they did that in Madison last year too, where like the top three were Ogre Maw tribes with Gut Lords, me with Skaven Storm Fiends, and then somebody with Skaven Rat Ogres, and that was like the three, right? And so that kind of goofiness of Warcry is, I would be sad to see it go, but I can see how if the community gets even just 50% bigger than it is now, I could see wanting a standardization. I mean, like for example, we recently locally had an issue with people at various game stores around the city realizing that there was a fairly large Warcry community and people interested in Warcry, and just starting to run events that overlapped with the events that we were running and made it really hard for us to like talk with them about when and where they should be running their events. And they were running their events with the official core book Warcry stuff, and it was like it was just not a good situation for anyone involved. And I think it burnt some people out a little bit, being like, man, like if there's a tournament every 2 weeks, then none of the tournaments are special, right?
Yeah.
So
and let me say something really quick too. The interesting thing about the ITC as it evolved, especially for Age of Sigmar, is that it did start to push out some of these little smaller quirky tournaments because the people that were regularly playing in tournaments wanted to be a part of the ITC.
Yeah.
They were basically saying, if it's not part of the ITC, I don't want to be a part of it. But that was who they were as a player, right? They wanted that competitiveness. Now you still have, I mean, you can find tournaments all over the place, like especially here in Virginia, for example, where it'll be like goofy tournaments. I mean, if, for example, we were to run a Warcry ITC, I would absolutely run some ITC events, but I would still have a Battle of the Bespokes, only one box of bespoke, and we're playing it, and there'll be prizes, but this is not an ITC event. Do you know what I mean? Like, we'll do our fun thing, and you'll still get people to come out to those things, you know. But what naturally happened is,
I don't think Warcry
it was
big
almost
enough for that.
What's that?
I don't think Warcry is big enough for that.
I don't think so either right now. And so what I think naturally happens though with an ITC, and this is a con that people have said, is it's almost like the Walmartization of, you know what I mean? It's like, well, why would I go to the mom and pop shops when I can get everything I need at Walmart for cheaper? You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Kind of the argument I was saying that also though is like it was the events run by stores that were really poorly run, and it was like the events that we were just like we were showing up guerrilla style at Game Center, which is, you know, just like a place we knew had space and wasn't that popular to run our event, and we wouldn't even tell them ahead of time, and like that was the better run event. I don't know, it's tough. I would miss the goofiness of certain, or like the ability for certain TOs to kind of put their stamp on what events in a certain area look like. But I can see why if the community was a lot bigger, why you would want that. I would hope that the way we would do it for Warcry would maybe be a little bit more freeform than the way they do it in AOS and 40K, where maybe you could have like little allowable twists, or you could have a way to count a narrative tournament for something, you know, depending on how weird and narrative-y it was.
It also doesn't have to start, you know, you can let it evolve to see if it's something that the community actually wants to take on, right? Like, you don't have to come in with these are the packets that must be run to contribute to it. Just open it up and say part of Warcry is that it's a casual, goofy game, and we're not going to have, you know, fully balanced packets from one tournament to another. So 200 points in this tournament may not be the same as 200 points in that tournament, but we don't care for the first initial seasons that are run. We just collect the data and see how it plays, and maybe you collect every tournament that's submitted also submits the, you know, some metric that describes the goofiness of it, right?
Absolutely.
I'll say this that I think that your major tournaments, like your big ones, some of your Adepticons, your Nova Opens, like, you know, like, I mean, some of the big ones that you have that have like 25, 30 plus people at it, you know, those need to be standardized. Those ones,
and those are the goofiest tournaments right now. Like the way we've been going, those have been the goofiest tournaments. Where like, Adepticon was goofy, right? It was like a weird set of missions. Nobody knew what the missions were going to be ahead of time, which is really terrible practice. Warhammer World had like this 50-person tournament where like 3 of the missions were essentially unplayable, and like 2 of them were really good. And like, you know, I love you, Justin, but like you had a tournament that wasn't Swiss, and it was well run and people liked it, but it wasn't Swiss. So that's like very non-standard. Right. And so, it is interesting that the biggest tournaments are the goofiest in Warcry at the moment.
And so the thing is you have, when with the way that your ITC score is calculated, where you have like 4 are allowable from local tournaments, but then 2 have to be from majors, for example, to be
You'd
counted.
almost have to do the opposite, and
Maybe, you know,
work.
I mean, but the thing is like if you started to standardize some of the bigger ones, you'd have to get the TOs on board, right? With that. But if you start to standardize some of the bigger ones, then that still leaves some room for some goofy one-off ones that you can have in your ITC score. Do you know what I mean? Like you could go play a goofy local one, you know what I mean? And it's still like as long as it hits the minimum basic parameters of an ITC event, you know, like which is usually the minimum parameters are the X amount of rounds it has and the X amount of people it has. I mean, that's usually the parameters.
Yeah. So,
you know? I still think that like if you're counting like you can only have X amount of locals, you have to have some majors, you have to have some grands or something like that. You have a mix that gives you that freedom to still have fun little local goofy tournaments. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I agree. I'm going to say, you know, my background in engineering tells me that you should not over optimize a problem until you determine that you actually need optimization at all in the problem. So part of me says, I think if someone's going to roll out something like this, it should be very loose initially, because the game for the last, you know, how many years has the game been around, right?
5 years.
5 years.
Yeah.
For the past 5 years, it's been a loose game that's created the community it is the community we have today. So if you start to put a little bit of structure in, you know, a ranking system that can be connected globally, run it for a season or two, just with that early connectivity that can start to try to attach the community to itself. And then as you get that data in, as you start to see the wackiness maybe or the unbalance, you start to adjust it and you start to optimize it a little bit at a time so that it can evolve, rather than trying to make it the perfect system right out the door, when Warcry may actually have a little bit of a different community that maybe doesn't entirely evolve into it a little more naturally than like AOS or 40K does.
So one question I've got for you guys is, what do you think about the idea of like, do we want to discourage? Because one of the things the ITC does is, if you're not the kind of person who's going twice a month to a tournament, if you care about your ITC ranking, you cannot ever bring a meme list until like maybe you bank your 5 good tournaments. After, like, if you're going to maybe 2 tournaments every 3 months, right? Like maybe by the end of the year, you get to bring 1 meme list at the end of the year.
Or you have a pin name.
Yeah.
Actually, that might be the way to do it, actually, Jason. I guess maybe that's the way to do it, is you have your alter ego. But
well, I'll say this that I had Jason and I played really hard in 2019 Age of Sigmar. I mean, and I think that I had more than 10 scores, you know, that I had from local tournaments, and I played LVO, I think, or not LVO, but Nova Open and some other big ones, you know. So we had we played hard on that season, and I had more than 10 scores, and I will say that my worst scores automatically dropped off. Because you know, like, as I played
5
4
drop
and I played my 4 locals, it was going to take my best, right? And so, yeah, like if I got 4 great scores, then I could bring a meme list and not care about it, or I could just bring a meme list in the beginning and not care about it, and then play 4 good ones later on. Do you know what I mean? So, so it I don't think that it hurts you to play a meme list unless you are only going to get 3 scores. Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
So,
yeah, and that's what I mean. It's like, so it's for the people who might only go to 6 events and they've got to make 5 count. They can't bring a meme list ever, right? Because you're gonna have one bad. You're probably gonna have 2 or 3 bad events
if they really care. I mean, if they really care about their score too, you know what I mean? Because like, I think Jason and I both realized in 2019 that we weren't going to crack the top 200. 300, 400. I don't know. I think I was ranked 800.
I think I got to like above 150 for like
Oh, maybe. Yeah.
a week.
Yeah, for like a week, you know. Yeah. So like, you know, I mean, but we kept going to tournaments because tournaments were fun.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like we realized that I wasn't going to be best in Nighthawk because there was freaking Jeremy Vessier that was playing it, and he's like top 5 in the country at the time.
Yeah.
You
Bill
know?
Souza was playing Flesh Eater Courts.
Yeah, Bill's freaking Souza, who's like Captain America, the Team America, right? And so it's like, you know, we realized, hey, we're not going to do this, but we're still going to tournaments because we're still having fun. And I think that's an important distinction, is that it's fun to be on a leaderboard. It's fun to check your points during the thing and see how you're doing, you know what I mean, and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, it's like for AOS and 40K, like the top 50 players are the ones that are really fretting over their scores. So everybody behind them are just having a good time, you know?
Okay.
So I don't know. Like, but yeah, like if you're like top 10 and you're worried about your meme list, you probably wouldn't be able to bring your meme list if you're looking to maintain that top 10 status, you know?
You also might be frustrated you might cherry pick your tournaments that you go to based off of the actual missions that are put there. So that's a valid concern. I don't know if the Warcry community is big enough, and while it does have competitiveness in it, I don't know if the density of competitive players is big enough for that to be a problem, at least early on. It might morph into a problem as the game grows, but the pros probably outweigh the cons with the game growing its community.
Yeah.
I think there's a couple of things that are working for us and working against us, right? If we wanted to do an ITC, and I think Jason's right that we got to take it slow. If we wanted to implement something like this, right? We need buy-in from more than just, you know, the 3 of us on a podcast, right? We need buy-in from tournament organizers from all over.
So you've only gotten about 3/4 of the way to getting me.
Right? Exactly. Yeah. You know,
you're softening me up. I'm
Yeah.
less freaked out about this than I was before, but I'm still a little skeptical. Yeah.
But I'll tell you where we start. I think we start by agreeing on the software by which we run our tournaments, because it's not Best Coast Pairings. We have found out the hard way that Best Coast Pairings doesn't want to give any attention to Warcry. And listen, I know the owner of Best Coast Pairings personally. I have him on speed dial, and he still won't fix it for us. Like, I give him information. I offer to, like, you know, I mean, I give him like the factions all the time. I try to update our scoring system. I try to update like all this stuff. And he just he just won't do it. It's just so low on his totem pole for Best Coast Pairings when he's trying to keep 40K and Age of Sigmar alive. You know what I mean?
He's got to set his priorities, and 40K and AOS are the big priorities for him.
They're the big priorities, right? 40K specifically. And so with that in mind, you know, I think there's other places. I know some people have been using War Tally, for example, as a way. But I think if the TOs could get together and say, hey, we're going to use this system to be able to get the data. And if we all just started doing that, that might be a step in the right direction, you know? And you can still run your goofy stuff.
Yeah, my question to you is like, so a lot of events still happen on BCP.
Yeah.
And they have BCP is broken, but they still happen there.
Yeah.
Because there's just a lot of people who run Warcry events who aren't like, there's the community and the community, you know what I mean? Like, there's the larger community of Warcry, and then there's the people who yell at each other on Discord, and those are 2 different communities.
Sure.
I think I hear a lot from the people on Discord that they are the community, but there's like 150 people who yell at each other on Discord, and there are, you know, whatever, like 5,000 to 10,000 people who play Warcry. And a lot of TOs don't really do Discord, so that's a tough, like, I don't know how you reach out. I think War Tally is absolutely where we should be trying to push people, but I think you would also need a way for people to upload outside of War Tally.
Sure.
Like upload what happened in their event outside of War Tally. Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean
there needs to
that's
be a
an
public.
interesting
There needs to be
problem.
like,
Yeah.
I mean, one of the advantages of being a member of BCP, and don't get me wrong, there's not a lot of advantages of being a member of BCP, but one of the advantages is you could see the list in the tournament, right, and the placings and how they did. And I mean, the unfortunate thing, and you know this, is that you had to do some sleuthing. Like it was hard to tell who played who and who won against who without going into each individual match and be like, oh, this was that list. Oh, this was that KO list. Because there's like 4 KO factions in there, or something like that. And you're like, oh, this was that KO one playing this guy and this one, and then he played that guy. And you had to kind of almost reverse engineer the results to understand the pathway of the tournament winner, for example,
Right.
and so yeah, I mean, I think that there should be a way to make the data a little bit more public facing so that people could see it. And I think that that would drive interest as well. Like you're like, oh, hey, look, there's events happening and these are the things that are winning. What kind of lists we're playing there in Australia? What kind of lists we're playing there in Northern England? Do you know what I mean? Or in Virginia? What's happening there? Oh, that's interesting. And just being able to see that from the average person, I think also sparks interest and also sparks interest in running events as well. Like, oh, it's actually not that hard. They ran an 8-person event and it was totally cool. Not an issue. So, but I think that's the first place that you could start. You know what I mean? Another place that you could start pretty easily, and this is something you're already doing, is I call it a standardized tournament pack, but let me call it just a common tournament pack. You don't have to use it, but like if you have a common base from which you're working from, then that makes things a lot easier, especially for like newer TOs that don't know what they're doing. They're like, I know that the missions in the core book aren't that great, but I don't know where to start otherwise. Well, great. Here's a tournament pack that you can literally plug and play with this thing, and I think that that's part of the ITC too, especially in the beginning, is it was teaching TOs how to run events as well. Like what system they needed to use, like to track the things, and like how to formulate a tournament pack, how to like organize like the Swiss pairings or whatever it is, and just having that. And I think that all of those things would help grow the game, for events anyway, because tournaments are fun. They can be a lot of fun. You get to play 3 games of Warcry at least, So it's good stuff. So anyway, I don't think we've totally convinced you, Dan, but I think you're closer to it than you were when we started.
I think the core thing that actually got me the most on board was Jason talking about don't optimize the problem until you figure out what you need to optimize, essentially. Or so I do think that's interesting. I would be interested in hearing, like, in a future episode, maybe not next month, but maybe the month after, certainly one of the months before Nova,
Mm-hmm.
if we maybe did a thing like this is an introduction to it, and then maybe there was like, if we all maybe got together and like proposed specifics of how it could work, and like, yeah, I'd be interested in seeing what the specifics would look like, I guess. 'Cause although I think that like the smallness and the countercultural quality of Warcry and the goofiness of Warcry are all like integral to the game. Um, and so when I look at the ITC, that's not what I want. But when you talk about we could make something that took the core of that and made and Warcried it, right?
Warcry.
Then I
I
get
like
yeah, and then I get a lot less worried, right? So
Yeah.
maybe seeing how that would look and what the specifics would look like would be really interesting.
Yeah. I think that's a great idea. And we'd love to hear everybody's thoughts about, a Warcry ITC. Like, is this something that you would be interested in? Is this something that you would like to participate in as a player? Would you like that standardization? Would you like, more visible events, those types of things? Let us know. Let us know in the Discord. Let us know in the comments of this video. We'd love to hear what you think about it, because I think that if we do it right, it could be the next significant evolution for Warcry, right?
Yeah.
Meaning that, like, we talked earlier all about this FAQ. We talked about where they get the data from. And if we could find a way to tell the collective story of Warcry across the globe, GW sees it. I mean, they respond extremely quickly to 40K and AOS. You know, I know sometimes they don't think that it's quick enough, but I'll be honest with you. When they get it a month after a release and we're sitting here 6 to 8 months after a release, like,
Right.
you know, it's pretty quickly. So it'd be interesting to see if, like, you know, if GW saw that there was a groundswell behind it, maybe they put more resources behind Warcry as well, you know?
Yeah.
So
I think that's accurate.
So, yeah. But thank you, everybody, for listening to us tonight. We hope that our incoherent rambling sometimes maybe were beneficial to you, although that's probably more myself than my two illustrious co-hosts, and especially Dan with your special guest that you had on earlier. You know, so but thank you, everybody, to listening to us tonight, and we love to hear what you think about a lot of different stuff. So let us know in the Discord. And with that, I think that should be it. Have a great night, and we'll see you all at the tables.
All right. See ya.